of Charles Michel. We want to reach agreement swiftly. We have seen huge economic upheaval and we cannot waste any time. Only the weakest and most vulnerable would suffer. I hope that we will reach an agreement before the summer recess. We will need to see compromise, much compromise on all sides, including here. This is an extraordinary situation, unprecedented in the history of the European Union. And so, in extraordinary times, Germany is willing to defend an extraordinary sum of 500 billion. We need European unity. I firmly believe that the social dimension is just as important as the economic dimension. We need a socially and economically fair Europe. That is key to democratic cohesion. It is the best way to tackle all those that would undermine our democracy and rend us asunder. For this reason, during our Council presidency, we will focus in particular on young people, children's rights. You are the future of Europe, and you have been particularly hard hit by this crisis. We want to look at a European youth employment agenda, a stronger European youth guarantee. We want to help young people find employment. We shouldn't be naive. In many member states, Eurosceptics are waiting to misuse this crisis to their own ends. We need to demonstrate the added value of cooperation and coordination at European level. We must show that return to nationalism would reduce us all. We can only progress if we protect Europe together. It is very important that those regions worst affected by the crisis and the people living there can count on our solidarity. It is in our own interests to ensure that. That also means that huge effort is required, but it should not add an excessive burden to the stronger economies. Everyone will have to place themselves in another's shoes. So consider what the different member states can contribute, not in economic, political and societal terms. So I would ask you as MEPs to offer your support today. I firmly believe that extraordinary solidarity is called for, and everyone is willing to show that during this crisis. Germany is. The repercussions of the pandemic will mark and shape our presidency, but there are other major challenges of the day that we need to bear in mind, and those are the other three topics I wanted to mention. Firstly, climate change. Half a year ago, Commission President Ursula von der Leyen outlined a climate protection programme in this chamber. She addressed the urgency of the matter to you, called for immediate action. Europe needs to act to preserve our planet. I firmly believe that we need a global solution to climate protection, and that will only be possible if Europe takes the lead. We have a European Green Deal strategy proposed by the Commission, and that is very important for us. We will closely support that with the move towards a low-carbon society, a green society with strong, innovative companies and entrepreneurship. We need to look at the natural resources and competitiveness of Europe and protect those assets for future generations. It's very important that we have climate neutrality in Europe by 2050, and that must be made legally binding. I welcome the Commission's thinking to set targets for 2030 and increase those targets to 50–55% compared to 1990 levels. We will also support work on the European climate law. Another major challenge, the fourth point that is very important to us during our presidency, is digitalization. Here too, we need to look at the way we live and do business and change that in a sustainable fashion. Now, many people are fearful at the thought. They fear the pace of change, and I can understand that. But let me be clear here and frank. We need a commitment to digitalization and climate protection. That doesn't mean that we will sweep away everything and endanger the jobs of millions of Europeans. Quite the opposite. This is a much-needed change, reform of our societies and economies that will offer greater protection and employment. In recent months, we've seen how Europe is reliant on third countries. Many have seen this in daily digital communications, the different services or technology available. It is very important that Europe enjoys digital sovereignty, particularly in key areas such as artificial intelligence and quantum computing, also in ensuring a secure, trustworthy data infrastructure. We want to make progress in these areas. We also need to effectively protect our democracies against cyber threats and disinformation. All democracies need open debate, and the general public must be able to share knowledge and information. Citizens need to be able to engage in debate to reach a mutual understanding as to how they can live together. We have seen lies and disinformation, and that is no way to fight the pandemic. We can't allow hate speech and incitement to hatred, populism and the like to spread. Democracies need truth and transparency. That is the hallmark of Europe, and that is what Germany will advocate for and push for during its presidency. Fifth point, Europe's responsibility in a globalized world. Now look at any map. Now, in addition to the UK and Western Balkans, we have other external neighbours, Russia, Belarus, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. At the same time, we are living at a time of huge upheaval. Many member states in Europe are involved in the transatlantic partnership, but Europe needs to rely more on itself. We need to be able to decide the future of Europe in this rapidly changing world. We need to decide whether we take Europe seriously, whether we want Europe's freedom and identity to be safeguarded in times of crisis. So we need a strong European foreign and security policy. Now, one key partner will remain the United Kingdom. We need to shape our future relationship, and that will keep us busy over the next 6 months. Progress in negotiations thus far have been slim, to put it diplomatically. We've agreed with the United Kingdom to accelerate the pace of talks to reach an agreement by autumn, an agreement that can be ratified by the end of the year. I will continue to push for a good solution, but we should also prepare for a possible no-deal scenario. During our presidency, we need to do everything within our power to focus on 3 further foreign policy goals. Firstly, on accession conferences, we need to engage in talks with North Macedonia and Albania so that the Western Balkans have accession prospects. We also need to look at our relationship with our neighbouring continent, Africa. We will have an EU-AU conference, and we need to look at future prospects. We'll talk about migration, for example. There are so many people, unprecedented numbers fleeing, and so Europe has a key responsibility here when it comes to asylum and refugee policy. We need to make progress here. It is very politically sensitive, and we need to show that sensitivity, but we cannot look the other way. We need to face up to our humanitarian responsibilities and show solidarity. Finally, we need to look at our strategic relationship with China. We have a trade relationship, but we have different societal and political views, particularly when it comes to human rights and rule of law. The EU-China summit, unfortunately, cannot take place in September, but we want to continue open, frank dialogue with China. During the German presidency, we will continue discussions on foreign and security policy, whether we want to retain the unanimity principle or not, what lessons Europe can learn from the coronavirus pandemic. For example, sovereignty in the healthcare sector, how we can strengthen our sovereignty in this area. We want to consider these issues as part of the conference on the future of Europe. Last year, the European Commission suggested such a conference, and you have many ideas on this conference. I would urge that the conference focus on a few key issues to deliver tangible results so that citizens across different member states can engage in discussions. I've already discussed this today with David Sassoli, the President of the European Parliament. President, Commission President, ladies and gentlemen, do we want to safeguard Europe? Then we need all that I've discussed today: fundamental rights, cohesion, a response to climate change and digitalization. Europe needs to face its responsibility in the world. We need a greener, more digital, more innovative, more competitive Europe. Europe needs to stand for a rules-based order on the world stage, and it must represent innovation and sustainability around the world. That is our vision for Europe. Perhaps I could conclude with a personal note. It is a particularly wonderful that I'm delighted to note that during our presidency, Ludwig van Beethoven will be commemorated in December. Whenever I listen to his music, I discover something new that really touches me. The same can be said of Europe. We rediscover it new each and every day, and I'm always impressed by Europe. So I would finish up by referring to the message of Beethoven's music, and I hope that that will guide us into the future. What a better message is there than his? Europe is capable if we stick together and if we stand united. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chancellor.
This Friday on Euronews.
Unreported Europe takes you across the continent, to its heart and to its depths. Meet those who make up Europe: farmers, workers, business owners, refugees, women, men, families. Unreported Europe brings you their stories. No stone is left unturned, no corner unexplored. Unreported Europe on Euronews and Euronews.com.
Get all the latest on Euronews Now, coming up shortly.
latest news minute by minute on the coronavirus pandemic on Euronews.com and on our mobile apps.
This Friday on Euronews.
What comes to your mind when you think of the Middle East?
A place where business and culture are coming together to create a unique bridge between East and West? It's from here that we'll bring you our flagship regional show, Inspire Middle East. We'll introduce you to the CEOs, scientists, rising stars, singers and celebrities.
Be inspired and join us on Inspire Middle East every Friday on Euronews and Euronews.com.
Get all the latest on Euronews Now, coming up shortly.
Because business is not only about acting fast, but doing the right thing at the right moment. Because no one can make the difference by thinking mainstream. Every day, everywhere, we show you a different view on economy and trends. Because, above all, business is about vision. Euronews. Business like nowhere else.
Get all the latest on Euronews Now, coming up shortly.